the Teaching a Beginner series, and I have Kaique. It's really funny because since we made that last video, I've been wanting to teach him certain things and he's been asking me questions. And I've been like, just wait for the video so we could actually capture it for you guys. So today we're gonna be talking about one of the most important things that you can do when starting photography and videography, and that's learning how to expose your camera properly. And if you don't expose your camera properly, you probably won't be able to fix it in post, and it's a dead giveaway of a beginner. So we're gonna get him out of that phase and make sure that he knows how to do it properly so he can make more money and make better pictures. When you're filming anything, the one thing you have to keep in mind, and this is specifically video, is 180-degree shutter rule. We'll talk, I know, you're like, what? So we'll talk about this a little bit more because there are some times where you can break that rule. But it's essentially, if you're filming at 24 frames per second, which is what most movies are filmed in, it's not slow motion, it has that nice blur. You want to have your shutter speed at twice your frame rate. So that would be 48 frames per second. Yes. Since most cameras don't have that, it'll be 1/50. And this is specifically for video. When you change it to 1/50, it becomes super exposed. You see how the highlights are just gone. It looks amateur, looks beginner. Now point it at the sky. It's like blown out. Way overexposed. So right here, if you want to keep that f4, so you have somewhat of a blurry background when you zoom in or do any of that kind of stuff, and so it actually looks blurry, you want to put an ND filter on the front of your lens. Essentially, you're bringing down the overall exposure of your camera. So now you can have proper exposure while still keeping the lowest f-stop, which is your aperture.
Okay, if I point to the sky now, still blown.
Yeah, so if you point to the sky and you want to expose for the sky, you can just lower it a lot. But honestly, man, it depends on the kind of camera that you have. When you're exposing for an image and you don't have outside lighting, you could put a bounce, a white board, anything, and bounce back the light that's hitting him, okay, so that he can be exposed. If we're really going for the sky, so we want detail in the sky, he's really not exposed.
Yeah.
So that's when you would want to add light. But since we don't have light, and this isn't like the best camera in the world.
You're talking bad about my camera?
Yeah. Okay, mind you, this is Kaique's first camera. It's an A6600. He just got it.
Like 3 days ago?
3 days ago.
Yeah.
Like many people watching this video, it's probably not gonna have the highest dynamic range. Depending on the type of camera, and in this case, this type of camera, you really have to pick and choose what you want to be exposed. If you want the sky to be super exposed, fine. Or if you want your subject to be super exposed and then your sky is overexposed. Does that make sense?
So you have to make sacrifice.
Yeah, good job, bro. Thank you. That's why a lot of people do bring in outside lighting so they don't have to make sacrifices.
That makes sense.
You can have a really crappy camera, which this is a good one, and have good lighting to properly expose your image, and you'll have a pretty good looking image. It won't look like a crappy camera.
It's not about like 100% the camera that you have and the lenses. It's more how to expose your camera. It all depends on the lighting out, like the outside lighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it depends on the outside lighting, what lighting you have. Thankfully today it's a cloudy day. Everything's diffused. Whatever you point your camera at will probably look good.
When you say like today was a good day to like film, I was like, this day is so ugly. I don't know why it's a good day.
So indirect sunlight, you usually have like really harsh light hitting your face. And most videographers, photographers will actually diffuse the light to get soft light. So right now, God himself put a whole diffusion over the sun and said, hey, here you go, here's some nice light. If you do want your photos or videos to look nicer and you don't have a nice camera, because nicer cameras do have softer roll off on the highlights, I would suggest to pick a cloudy time of day to film or to shoot photos, because that'll just inherently make everything look better.
And how about like, because people like taking pictures in golden hour.
Yes.
So do you expose the same way?
That's a good question, actually. So, no. It depends. All right, so follow me. Let's say the sun's right here. So right now, The sun is right behind your head. A lot of people like shooting in golden hour with the sun directly behind their heads. It's called backlighting your subject.
Okay.
But if that was actually golden hour, you would be so underexposed. So what I would do, and what I would suggest anybody else to do, if you want to expose your camera properly, he asked about golden hour, would be to move the subject here. So now the sun is that direction. The sky is still extremely gold. I would move him like that. So he still has some exposure on his face, and I'm shooting from this direction. So I don't have a blown out sky. I could bump the exposure now for his skin because I don't have the sun literally blazing behind him. No one's gonna expose for the sun. You can't do that. So if you don't have a good camera, or if you just want a little tip, it's just to tweak your angle. The sun doesn't have to be directly behind your head. Then you could actually expose for your subject.
So you have to like move around.
Yeah.
You have to work like with the sun that you have.
Yeah, if your sun is your only light source, you have to move yourself, move your subject. A lot of people don't do that. They're just like, ooh, pretty background.
Oh, okay.
And pretty background doesn't always translate to a
good picture.
a good picture, good video, or properly exposed picture or video.
So I want to ask you now like about the ISO, because the shutter speed, okay, there's a rule for that.
Yeah.
The aperture, well, the lowest possible in a sense for
certain things.
For certain things, yeah. But the
Doesn't.
ISO, I know makes noise in your picture, in your video.
Yeah.
So how do I expose correctly that?
So first, you want to know what ISO actually is before worrying about these things. And honestly, I would have to Google it to tell you. But what I do know is that it's artificially raising the exposure in your camera. So that's why it's adding noise. Some cameras are designed in a way where they can have high ISO and all that stuff. Really, rule of thumb, you want the ISO as low as possible for your specific camera.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is certain cameras shoot in a standard profile. They don't have log profiles, but each log profile has a native ISO.
So you can like edit?
What do you mean?
Like the lighting and everything, so you record a little bit, like underexpose everything, so then you can like post see the lighting.
Bro, so this is where it's complicated.
Okay.
Each camera is different.
Okay.
Each sensor is different. You need to learn your specific camera because it's not always like that. Actually, Sony cameras, you want to overexpose just a little bit. This is a side note, but you do want to shoot in a log profile if you want the most dynamic range out of your camera. People are really annoying and they'll be like, oh, I don't need to do that extra work. It's not extra work. You get more information and just put a LUT on it or just learn. Look, you're doing this for money. You're buying expensive cameras and you're gonna shoot in a standard profile. It just doesn't make any sense. So you have your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO. You change one, it affects everything and da-da-da-da-da. But bro.
That seems complicated.
Listen, I know it sounds complicated. That's why you have an ND filter in front of your thing.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense now.
You don't have to change any settings. This is if you're outside and you just
okay.
adjust. There are tons of different things that you can do. We're not talking about histograms, waveforms, but honestly, when I was first starting out, those things kind of stopped me from growing because it stopped me from shooting. They overwhelmed me and whatnot. That's a huge thing, especially if you're just starting out. Don't try and learn everything at once. Just go and shoot. Learn the basics, shoot, do as much as you can, fail, practice, fail, succeed, do all those different things. If you think, what the heck was that, a TED Talk? Just keep going, don't quit. There's gonna be a second part where we're gonna go indoors. There's not gonna be a lot of light. So he's actually gonna have to expose and use that triangle system. I'm gonna have Kaike shoot some things and then I'm gonna go in there, critique it, tell him what he should have done and should not have done, just so you guys can get some real world feedback from a professional. Maybe you're making the same mistakes.
I'll make a lot of mistakes.
Oh my gosh. Well, we made it.
The pizza was good.
That pizza was good. We were in a library. We wanted to get a place with like not good lighting, mixed lighting, tons of different things. It's gonna be a little bit more difficult to shoot in here and expose properly. You're probably not gonna need the ND filter anymore. We actually can't talk too loud because we're in a library. I don't know why we decided to do this. We just thought it would be interesting, like we're learning. So like, welcome to the classroom. So yeah, Kaike, we're just gonna go and shoot and just correct certain things every now and then. Let's get this little guy off your lens so you can actually get some light, and let's shoot some pictures of people in the library.
Come on. Okay, I have a question.
That was quick, bro.
Yes. Do you think this is too grainy?
Are you at 500 ISO?
Yes.
So when you're at your base ISO, it won't be more grainy or less grainy. On the second wedding I ever shot, I got a new camera and I didn't learn the camera.
Oh, what?
It was a Canon R6. Canon, a lot of times you have to like kind of overexpose, and there's not a lot of dynamic range in their cameras, even
Any ones?
yeah, they're just crap.
Okay.
No, but I didn't learn my camera, so I underexposed a lot of my images because I was so used to photography, which in photography, you're able to underexpose your images and bring them up. In video, you just don't. Just don't underexpose your images, usually overexpose your image. And by that, I mean your subject. So for that image, it probably looked a little bit grainier, specifically because it was a little underexposed. I was a little under. I personally would have done it a little tighter and gotten me like over the shoulder and exposed for me and left out those lights. All of those lights over there are what was overexposed, and I think you were probably trying to balance it out.
So I would change my location as well?
This is actually really important. It's really good that he's starting to learn these different things, because Kaike, now you're not just thinking, hey, what can I change in camera? You're thinking about location, lighting that's available and stuff. So that's super important, and something that once you start getting better and more knowledgeable with exposure, you'll think that way. You won't think, what settings can I just change in my camera? You'll think, hey, what angles can I get to get more light on my subject? All right, so we're back at the studio. I'm with Kaike, and we're gonna look at his footage that he shot throughout the day. This is a huge part of learning, editing your own footage. A lot of people, they just get into it and they give it to an editor and all of that. But if you edit your own footage, you'll see where you exposed improperly, composed improperly, where you were good in how you shot it, and how you completely missed. So we're gonna go through all those different things and see how Kaike did. I think you did a pretty good job, but we'll figure it out.
I had a pretty good teacher.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to a couple clips that you had outside and just look at that handsome fella. So here you overexposed it, which is good.
But it's daylight also. It's like outside.
It's outside and it's overcast, so here you would just lower it a good bit. It's a pretty good example. It's like pretty evenly exposed. Like, pretty sure anyone would be happy with that. But anyway, so your outside shots are pretty good. There's really not that much to say because you did a good job. And you slightly overexposed because this is how it came out normally. It's pretty overexposed. You see that? And then you just bring it down, do your whole kit and caboodle kind of thing. All right, bro.
That's why I fail at school.
Now for the indoor shots. You ready?
Yeah.
So this probably looked normal on your camera, huh? Yeah?
Very normal. Wow.
That was not... Okay, so here's what happens, and here's what you don't want to do. This is a huge thing that a lot of people do. When they go indoors, they don't want to raise up their exposure, so they'll underexpose. But now look what happens when I raise.
It gets really noisy.
But also, this is your dynamic range. You see how it's like gray?
Yeah.
Yeah, so your camera pretty much, you can only go up to like there without the shadows falling apart. Wow. And it's super noisy, watch.
Yeah.
You can like see all that noise. You could see it breaking.
So
you could see it breaking apart here. You notice that? So what you would have wanted to do is shoot it at a higher ISO and then bring it down, which it kind of seems counterproductive because it's like, oh, well, I want to keep my ISO as low as possible. But for low light shooting, you really don't. You want to go as high as you can without, you got to know your camera.
Without breaking, like without.
You have to know your camera. So if you're like 3200 is the highest I can go without getting super noisy, go up to 3200.
So when editing and putting the LUTs and everything, won't get that noise, right?
No, I'm doing that right now and it's not getting rid of it. The reason why I even wanted to bring this footage and to show you was because it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, I nailed exposure. I think I nailed exposure. Now you can see it's like, oh, when I shoot underexposed, even when it's slightly dark, and I think, oh, I can just raise it in post. You really can't. I wouldn't use this unless I'm doing like a little mini vlog or a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Which is ironically a YouTube video.
Which one are you doing right now?
But if it wasn't, if this was client stuff,
Yeah, you would.
I would throw this out. I would be like, all right, well, I'm not using this image specifically unless there's a documentary, specifically because it's broken up and it's underexposed. Would you say like you understand exposure kind of?
Yeah, especially darker places.
Yeah.
That's the hardest one, I believe. Because like outdoors, you can use the ND filter.
Yeah.
So it gets easier. But indoors, you don't have enough light
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah.
Other than that, bro, I think you did pretty good. Well, hopefully you learned a lot.
Yes, definitely.
And
Thank
is
you
there
so
anything you want to say to the people?
Yeah. Keep watching the videos.
Yeah, listen to him. Make sure you subscribe and like this video. But anyways, I will see you in the next one on teaching a beginner how to, and I might sprinkle in some other videos in between when I am not crazy busy. See you in the next one.
Bye.